Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, wherever you may be in the world. This is Gift of Healing TV. I'm Sarah Jane, and welcome to this week's program. I am delighted to welcome Caroline Thomas, and she's going to be sharing with us healing your animal's stress issues with flower essences. Now, I'm sure there are loads of you out there who are animal lovers just as I am. And so anything that we can do to help our pets naturally, I'm sure it will be of interest to you all. So I hope that you're going to enjoy the program. Please feel free to ask questions. If you're watching this on the replay, email myself, Caroline. I'll make sure Caroline gets the email. Just ask questions. We'll answer those, and I'll make sure that Caroline gets the information as well. But let me introduce Caroline to you first. Caroline has been working with flower essences with animals for over 10 years. She trained in the Bach Flower Centre in Oxford and the Natural Animal Centre in Wales. Caroline has worked with hundreds of animals with complex emotional issues and is currently writing a book, Bailey's Flower Essences for Animals. We're going to talk more about that later, folks. She has her own academy where she teaches Bach flowers and crystal healing for animals to put my teeth back in, practitioner level. Caroline works closely with the Facebook Autism in Dogs group and has been able to help many of their members' dogs. Caroline, welcome to the program.
Hello. Thank you for that lovely introduction. Thank you very much.
That's all right. It's a real pleasure. Caroline, I like to ask my guests, can you just share a little bit about your story, but your story in respect how this happened, because I know you've got pets of your own, and folks, if you see Caroline's curtains moving behind, that's because I think she's got a dog wandering around, so the dog are around.
Well, my introduction to holistic practices was because I think everybody comes from a place that they need to change, and my brother had committed suicide in 1998. And it was a very difficult time for me. And the first thing I was introduced was crystals, and it was almost like a window opening because it was a very dark place. And I really just embraced myself with learning about lots of holistic practices. But I adore animals, and, you know, I just wanted to learn anything that would be able to help them. So I trained with the Bach Flower Centre, and then I learned with the Natural Animal Centre in Wales, and that was brilliant. And then I spent 10 years working at a rescue centre, learning my trade, as they say. And my speciality is really helping animals with complex mental health issues, and that's based on experience from my own family. And unfortunately, there's a lot of animals in this world that have really complicated mental health issues. And, you know, the flower essences have been brilliant in changing their lives. And, you know, I've worked with hundreds of dogs and horses and cats, but for me, it's about giving a dog, any animal, back their life so their owner can the owner and the animal can just walk forward. And I think that's it, because people, you know, there is mental health issues in animals. That's what I really want to talk about, is a really big subject, because animals have a lot of mental health issues and perhaps their owners don't recognize it. They have a lot of stress issues, and that's what I'm trying to help really with the flower essences.
And we love our animals, and the one thing we don't want our animals to do is suffer in any way, whether it's physical or emotional. But you started just because of your love of animals, or did you have a pet or did you know somebody who had a pet that really
I think that it was at that time I suffered quite a lot of mental health issues myself, and I was in quite a dark place, and that's when I discovered holistic therapies. And once I kind of healed myself, that's when I kind of, because my love of animals was so strong, that's when I wanted to take that to the animals, because I thought, oh my God, if it can heal me, what can it do for the animals? And that's why. So there's been no specific animal originally. It was perhaps brought on about, you know, we all have difficult things that happen in our lives, but for me, what happened to me and the loss of my brother, it's like a phoenix in actually changing myself so that I could actually go and help the animals. So, and that's what I've done. And so there's not a specific animal, but I've helped so many animals, definitely.
Oh, absolutely. And sort of, and we were talking about just before, and one of the easiest things to me is to work with animals, because they are out of any judgment. You
Yeah.
work with a person and it's, well, is it going to work? Isn't it going to work? Oh no, this can't work. Animals don't have that going on in their head. They don't have the monkey mind, the mind chatter. It's they trust what's happening, whether you're working with sort of the energies of Reiki or any other energies, working with the backflower remedies. It's amazing what animals will take on that humans won't, because they're just in total trust. And if humans could do with taking a leaf out of the book of animals, couldn't they?
And I think it's because they're honest, they're pure, they're present. You know, we need to learn about being present. Even the animals with the most complex emotional problems, they still are present. And it's kind of like when I get a case, you know, like a client phones me up and gives me the lowdown on what's going on, and I see the animal as the animal, and I treat it as the emotions. I don't treat the illness. So I don't treat if it's got a broken leg or something like that. You could have 3 different animals with the same broken leg, but they will all come emotionally in a different place. So I treat the emotions, and that seems to be what's so powerful. I treat them as individuals, and I have about over 200 different flower essences, and I make up a combination that's very specific for them, and it makes a difference to them.
Brilliant. Can you tell us a little about flower essences themselves? We'll come back to the animals, but what are flower essences? How are they made up? I'm not obviously asking you to give us the exact recipe, but tell us a little about them. And if there are any special ones, you know, sort of that you really find
Well, I think for this interview today, I'm going to talk about the batch flowers, because that's where I've been trained from. That's where I've been steeped in it for 10 years, and that's where my training comes from. And they're very easy to purchase. And but the irony of it is, unless you are trained by the Batch Flower Centre in Oxford, you wouldn't realise that actually it's called Dr. Batch, not Bark. Because Dr. Batch, when he saw his patients, he was actually a doctor. A lot of his patients couldn't pronounce his name. And that's why, you know, a traditionally trained batch flower practitioner is because they know that Dr. Batch told his patients, don't, you know, because they'd be going, bah, you know, they couldn't pronounce his name. So call me Batch, because in those days, in the 1920s. So he was the founder really of flower essences, although we know that it goes back before that, probably into medieval times and way before that. But he came from a very scientific background, which actually I do, and he got disillusioned, like, you know, by the medical, you know, how people were treated in hospitals, things like that, and he wanted something that was more gentle. So he was drawn to flowers, and he was walking in the field in Wales, and he saw a flower, and then he saw a droplet of water on the petal, and that's how we thought, I can harness this energy. And I mean, he was a very, very spiritual man, although this wasn't really known. And basically, it's flowers that are cut but not in a shadow, and they could be put in a bowl, and it has to be in a bright sunny day. And what you're doing is harnessing the energy of the flowers. There's no, so they're not like herbal. There's no part of the flower. It's just the energy of the flower. So you can't, it doesn't interact with medication. It can't hurt an animal. It's just an energy. It's called vibrational medicine. So it's actually, it's very powerful. It's incredibly powerful for especially for mental health issues. It's really, really powerful.
Okay, so for those who know anything about homeopathy, and again, it's the energy that's used. It is not, because actually that can be made with venom and things poisonous, but you can't overdose on it, and you can't be harmed by it. So
he was very
the energy within water, and anybody that knows about water knows that water can take on positive energies as well as negative energies. So what you're saying is it's taking on the energy of particular flowers.
And he trained, he was very interested in Hahnemann, and he trained to be a homeopathic doctor, and he actually created some nosodes. So he was very interested in that sort of side. But from there, he then, I think his family originated from Wales, and he was very interested in the countryside and stuff like that, and the energy of the flowers. But yeah, it's definitely very, very similar to homeopathy, but they don't do the dilutions like that. It's just like so if you buy a treatment bottle of, say, mimulus which is a batch flower remedy in, say, Holland and Barrett's, there's only a quarter of a drop from the stock bottle. Is that so? Right. That's hardly anything, isn't it? But yeah, they're incredibly powerful.
So the tiny drop, and that's what put into water, or in
so from you cut the flowers, the flower heads, or it could be twigs, or so Dr. Batch, Edward Batch, he was kind of the original person that founded this, but from that there's loads and loads of other companies that have used this, but then they've expanded it, that it's not in the sunlight, it's in the moonlight. They've used different parts, like the bay leaves, they've used the seeds and the flower heads, and you know, it's so beautiful that flowers are so powerful. But so from that bowl of water with some flowers in it on a beautiful sunny day, you would take that back to the batch flower centre, say, and then that would be diluted with 50% brandy, and that's called the mother tincture.
Yes,
that's the mother tincture, and that from that mother tincture you'd have just a quarter of a drop into a stock bottle. So I mean, he was amazing. He was so clever to harness the energy of the flowers, and you know, what I do is combine a lot of different, so I use Batch, Alaskan, Baileys, and I combine them all to make a really specific blend for the dogs, and they all interact, and you know, they completely make they work together brilliantly.
And of course, yes, I'm thinking the minute you said about the brandy, the rescue remedy, which I'm sure an awful lot of people out there will have heard of, because of course that's a batch flower remedy, isn't it? The rescue remedy.
Yeah, it's got 5 of the flowers that he wanted to. So basically, when people came into a stressful situation, he was very much about the individual. It's all about the individual, that we're treating the patient, we're not treating the disease, and associate batch flowers. And but he wanted to create something that was just, when there was a stressful situation, that you could just take, and that's what rescue remedy is. And it's got 5 of the flowers in, and it's amazing. But what he says was, if you keep turning to that, or you're not actually dealing with the real problem, so that's a starter point to help, because it will calm you, it will help with stress. But then if you keep needing to turn to rescue remedy, you need to look at actually what's going on, what's, you know. So and that's what I do with animals. I kind of look at so I treat the behaviors and don't look at the illness. I look at, you know, what's coming to me when I meet, you know, speak to a client.
Yeah. I know it has to be obviously yeah, and I know they're animals, but they're obviously, these animals have all got owners. So,
Oh,
have you got, so with no names, no pack drill, have you got, because I'm sure folks would love to listen to a story, and I know we've got people watching, so if you've got a question for Caroline, please feel free to type in your question and ask it, for those of you that are watching live now. But have you got a story that you can share?
Well, the animal, the owner, yeah, I have actually. I was working with a cat a few years ago, and it's a very, you know, highly bred. It was really highly bred, so she kept it in the home, and it never went out, and it was a very unusual breed, and you know, she wanted to show it, but it's, when it went to the show, it had all these, you know, it didn't like it in that, and it was almost like I was teaching the owner about, actually, you know, like we went through a lot of things, and I was teaching the owner, actually, well, it can, one, it's not socialized to going outside. You know, if you've got a cat that lives in the home, it's not had the experiences of meeting people, meeting dogs, meeting cats, meeting other people, and then you want to parade in front of hundreds of people, so it's going to be very stressed. The second thing was that it was more about her desire to show the cat than actually the cat's needs, and we had to go through quite a long period to actually get to that point of, like, because you can't, owners really love their animals, and they know that they for them, they're doing the best for them, but when you need to share kindly that actually, you know, what you're doing, you're setting up your cat to fail because they haven't got the experience to learn from. And that's when we got to that point after a few months, because you can't just say, you know, you're a rubbish owner, you don't understand, you know what's going on. She kind of got it. So it's about, you know, animals need to experience things to learn about the vets, or the dogs and things like that. And that's in a very crucial period when they're quite small. And if you've got a cat that lives indoors all the time, to actually bring a cat outside into a world that they're not used to is incredibly stressful. And then expect them to be a show cat, you're thinking, woo. And so when you talk to the owners, you have to not, you know, you kind of work with them so they come round in their own way to understand what's going on, not me saying, you know, you don't, you know. So it's kind of education. I call it educating the owner, really.
But I think from my own experience, I think the conversation we've had before is that sometimes when owners call us in, that actually the animal's just taking on the stresses or what of the actual owner. The animal loves their owner so much, and I have this, certainly I think more, no, it's actually a mix of cats and dogs with people that have come to me, but obviously I work very differently, and I don't work with the batch flower. And it sometimes there's really nothing wrong with the animal. The animal's just showing symptoms that are relevant to the owner.
Well, often they're very much like sponges, and they'll absorb all of the owner's emotions and things like that. And you come in and you work with the animal, and then you choose the essences, and they'll go, oh, well, that's what I, you know, I've got that. And I call it, it's actually mirroring of the animal and mirroring of the owner, and the animal's reflecting what's going on. And so in that case, I'd usually give a treatment bottle to both of them. But it's kind of like a moment when the owner realizes how their thoughts, their actions do impact on the animal. So it's quite powerful, that is.
And you know, I've had pets. I don't have any at the moment, out of choice, but having had cats myself for 22 years, sort of, and it coming out the other side of things, you suddenly realise just how much your pets have taken on, and they've realised the stuff going on with you that you hadn't realised.
Yeah.
When I remember sort of moves and separations of relationships and things, you know, my cats were super sensitive to, and I wasn't aware that there was anything wrong, but it was only once it was all over and they chilled, and I thought they were taking on my stuff, bless them. So the remedies, is it just a matter of putting them in water and letting the dog
I think, yeah,
how take them?
yeah. Well, I think first of all, you've got to understand what's going on in your animal. So you've got to understand when they exhibit a behaviour, where does it come from? So you're kind of like a detective in sort of going backwards in sort of seeing, is there something that's happened, something's changed, or and then from there you can choose. So say, for example, with the batch flowers, there's 38 essences which are to do with emotional problems. So you would kind of like look at, okay, this is what I think's going on, and you would look at, you know, I mean, in honesty, a lot of the problems with animals are fear issues. So, and a lot of it's to do with they're not socialized from a young age, so they're not able to cope with the world. They find it very difficult because there's kind of a window when they're very small that they are very open to a lot of different things, and if they don't experience a lot of different things in that window, as they get older, it becomes very difficult to change. But equally, the flower essences seem to be able to help them to adapt. So a lot of animals that I work with, so with fear issues, I obviously with remedies like mimulus, aspen, I'd combine those together because they're like for fear issues. I mean, that's just very basic, but it's once you realise you need to understand what's going on first before you then decide to move forward. But basically, once you've decided that, you can then get your essences, and you take 2 drops from the stock bottle. So they're the ones you'd see in the shop, and you can make up into a treatment bottle, and that's like a 30ml bottle, and you dilute that with 30 mils of, I know. So the thing is about, bless Dr. Batch, he was going, I want to make this really simple, like picking a cabbage out of my garden, and it's actually really complicated. And when I speak to owners and that, I can see them go, oh my God, this is so hard, this is so hard. And he just wanted everybody to have the system of batching in their house. But when you start talking about it, it sounds really complicated, but actually it's not really complicated, it's quite simple. But basically, it's the vibrational energy of the treatment bottle. So once you've made it up, it's not, if you drank the whole bottle, it's equivalent to 1 dose. That's the same as homeopathy. So it's the frequency. So if you're working with a dog that's scared of fireworks or fear aggressive, you would increase the frequency. So the recommended dose would be 4 drops 4 times a day, but you would say 4 drops every 10 minutes, and it's kind of like it's raising the vibrations of the animal, basically. Does that make sense? Or
Yeah, you know, but how do you administer those drops? Do you just put them straight into their mouth?
no, yeah. So the best place, so once you've made the treatment bottle, the best place you can do it is put it into their water bowl, because every time they drink from the water bowl, they're getting a dose. You put it in there, a treat in the morning, just put 4 drops in their treat in the morning. Obviously, if you're at work, they're drinking, then you maybe give them a treat when you come home, and then on their food. You do never administer it in their mouth, because the pipette could break off, and because it's glass.
Yeah, you know, and I think this is sort of helping people to realise that sort of, I appreciate what you're saying, sort of, it's actually, but do you know, as with anything that is new sounds difficult and complicated. Once you've done it several times, you think, what do I worry about? You know, it's getting the hang of, isn't it?
And it's actually very, very simple. It's very simple. It's just the fact that it sounds complicated, but it's very, very simple. And if you're, and maybe some of the people that are listening will say, oh, well, if you put it in a bowl of water and all the dogs or cats are drinking from it, what will that do? And actually, I've had a lot of owners, because I recommend this, where actually another dog will benefit from one of the essences, and that will actually benefit them. It can't hurt them. It can only, so if it's not meant to be, it won't work, but it can only benefit them emotionally. And so I always recommend putting them in the communal bowl. That's my personal thing, because you can't, we don't know what our dogs get up to. We don't know what cats get up. We don't know what horses get up to. We only assume, oh, this is what's going on. We actually don't know. So there's definitely nothing wrong with putting the treatment essences into the treatment bottle, in the bowl.
And so that's the joy, isn't it, with homeopathy, with the birch flower essences, with the flower essences, with these type of things that are pure energy based, then they can't harm.
No.
And that's the joy of it. And sort of with homeopathy, I've sort of said, well, can there be side effects? The answer to that is yes, they can, but actually they're all going to be positive side effects. They're not going to be anything that's negative. With human beings, you can suddenly find that something that you weren't even thinking about dealing with has been dealt with because of what you've been taking for something else.
That's right.
Can be absolutely amazing. So they're not going to hurt another animal at all.
No. I mean, they're 100% safe. They don't interact with medication from the vets. I mean, to be honest, they're like the perfect gift to an animal, and the power that they can offer in animals that are stressed, or so you have separation anxiety, you have animals that are grieving, you have animals. I mean, people don't really recognise that animals suffer from mental health issues, but what the way that's exhibited is in animals that are like eating, scratching down the door, or they're pacing or stuff like that. That's how they exhibit it. They exhibit it in a way that isn't so much like humans, but that is them suffering. So animals benefit so much from flower essences, and I've helped so many dogs with really complicated emotional problems, that when you hear that literally they're living on the nerves, are literally living in this space that they can't move forward, and when you hear that they can go out and they can deal with the world, it's a really powerful thing. And
there's two things here. One, with your introduction, you work with the Facebook Autism in Dogs group. Now, I mean, I would never have thought of dogs and I'm assuming you're talking about the dogs having autism, rather than dogs working with children and adults with autism.
And this is quite controversial because, people don't like, I don't know, people seem to think that animals are different to children, but actually what's happened is that the animals are reflecting the human world, where if you think about it, when you vaccinate, that you build up enough antibodies that you shouldn't need to vaccinate again, and yet we're vaccinating our dogs, cats, horses every year. So it doesn't make any sense. And basically from this over-vaccination, it's causing a lot of the similar autistic traits in our animals, where there's no eye contact. It's very difficult for the owners to communicate with them. Very similar to autism in people, really. And the flower essences have been really brilliant with a lot of dogs that I've worked with. Yeah, so I've worked with dogs that are so complicated, and the flower essences, I always go with a good heart, and I make an essence and I just think, this is what I've made, and then I don't have any expectation. I don't hold on to that. I just let it go out there to the dog, and then you get the feedback from the owners and you're thinking, wow, this is, the flowers want to be heard, basically. They want to say, we can help people, we can help the animals, but it's incredible the way they help. So I worked with so I've been working with a few dogs with the autistic Facebook page, and they have the same remedy every month. I've for about 3 years, but they've been able to let people, because I know with autism, it's very difficult for them to let people touch them, where they've been able to interact with people and let people touch with them, where they've been able to change and be more sociable and stuff like that. And so I get a lot of referrals from that specific page, because the difference is quite astounding and they have different lives.
So is it an ongoing thing that they have to keep taking the remedy then, from the comment you've just made? Or is it with some it is, and some it can be a one-off almost, and then it's not required again? So it's
really good. That's a really good question. And one of the things that's come out of the study for my book is that, so with Dr. Batcher, it's very much about unpeeling an onion. So you unpeeled one emotion, then you went to another emotion, then you went to another emotion. But what I found with the animals is that when you find that I call it the perfect melody of essences, when you find that perfect melody, that you almost need to, well, you need to stay on that same essence, because then I've tinkered with it, some different dogs, and they only said, oh, you know, what's going on? You've changed something. And then I realised that actually, I look at it like beautiful music that's being played, and it raises the vibration. So there's definitely a song for all of us, basically. So do they need to be on all the time? I don't know. It's the owners that come to me. I mean, I worked with a very, very complicated rescue animal recently, and I thought, there's no way, you know, it been kept in a cage. It wasn't allowed out. It never met other animals. It was made to stain its urine. It just went out to defecate, and this person came in and they saw it, and they said they gave money for this animal, and then she took it home, but obviously because it'd never been socialized, it never met other animals, it had a lot of problems, and it became quite aggressive to other people, because it just put its whole self on the animal. And I wrote back to them and said, you know what, you know, this is quite complex, because it's very ingrained in this dog. And she was 5 years old at this time, and it, you know, it was just bred, it was beaten, it was shouted at. And she wrote back a month later and said, you know, this dog is, you know, it started going to dog classes, and it won a rosette for being the best dog. And it's every animal is different, every person is different. So basically, do they need to be on the same time? Everyone's individual, because I would have thought this, compared to the other animals that I'd worked in similar situations, I would have said, you know, this is going to take a long time. And it took one remedy, and this dog was so grateful, and it just ran with it, and it was life-changing. And I didn't expect that. I would have, you know, and when I got the email about it, I was like, wow, you know, this is quite incredible. So it's whatever the animal needs, they're all different.
Just as we are, we're all different, and we all need different things. We really do. And so I was got the next part was you've said the autism, and then it was the abused dogs, the rescue dogs. So you've mentioned that as well. But you've mentioned your book, and this is something we did say we were going to talk about, because you are nearly, hopefully, written. But I know you said earlier that you still want to actually speak to somebody about it. So tell us a little about the book, and what's in it.
Well, basically, it's about Bailey's flower essences, and I read a book about 5 years ago that Arthur Bailey had written, and it was about dowsing. Actually, it wasn't about flower essences, and I was very taken with this man. And then towards the end of the book, he talks about flower essences and things like that. And at that time I was doing batch flowers, and I was very he had a very, because I'm a pharmacy technician in my day job, and he had a kind of a mind like mine. He wasn't airy fairy, and he was just like, you know, I need to find out how these work and things like that. And I was really fascinated with him, and it just kept coming back and coming back. And then 2.5 years ago, I was just very driven. So I wrote to his daughter and I said, you know, this is what I'm doing, you know, this is, I work with animals. Would you let me write a book? And they said yes. And I've been writing this book for 2.5 years. I've studied animals, over 40 animals all over the world. And that's where it came up about the perfect, you know, I call it the perfect song, basically, that, you know, it wasn't the same way Dr. Batcher, I was taught by the Batcher Flower Centre, but actually, you know, some animals, they, once they've got that perfect remedy, they just want that remedy. And I've kind of been using the Bailey's flower essences, and I've had some amazing results, and I'm nearly at the end of it, but it's been a journey. So Dr. Batcher, Dr. Bailey's daughter lives in Canada, and she's coming over in May. I'm going to meet with her, and I'm going to go to Arthur Bailey's garden where he all his flowers are, and I'm going to try and learn as much as I can. And so hopefully the book will be out in the summer. But it's been quite incredible, some of the animals that I've helped, and there's a lot of case studies. There's a lot about, you know, I mean, it's important that you understand about animal behaviour, and that animals aren't like humans. You have to understand where a dog comes from, a cat comes from, a horse comes from. And it's been an amazing journey, and I'm 98% there. So
I'll do that now. We'll share the link because you've got a page. Caroline's website is currently in the process of being redone, so you can't get at the rest of the website, but you can get at this page, emotionalhealingforanimals.co.uk/Baileys-book. So I'll make sure that goes under the video for those of you who are watching the video, and I will be making sure it goes under Caroline's bio, which is on our About Us page on the Gift of Healing TV website at the moment as well. And that page, Caroline has said, is going to stay up. And I'm assuming once the book becomes available, there'll be ability for people to buy it from there as well. So folks, just keep an eye on that, because that's going to be available.
I think
I'm interested in, then do.
I think, Sarah, well, going back to the beginning, you said, where did I start? And it was because my brother committed suicide. But going back to here, you know, where I am now, is because animals have mental health issues, and that's why I'm passionate about helping. That's why I work with a lot of rescue animals. I do it for free, and I make a difference. And if more people could, you know, purchase, you know, even Rescue Remedy and give it to their dogs that are afraid of fireworks. And, you know, flower essences are so powerful. They're so powerful. And because a lot of animals, they don't carry baggage, you know, like, you know, we carry a lot of baggage with us as humans, but animals don't. They make such a huge difference in the animals' lives. And, you know, they're cheap, they're not expensive, and it's not, you know, we're not giving them Prozac, we're not, you know, if from this interview I can get out to people, you know, just try, you know, if your dog's got separation anxiety, or it's got it's barking at other dogs, or it doesn't want to go out, or it's afraid of the rain or whatever, just give it Rescue Remedy, and I guarantee you within a week you'll notice the difference. But then once you notice the difference, you've got to then look at the animal individually and go, okay, that made a difference, what's going on? And, you know, it's such a gift. It's from the earth, and we need to be using it more. That's what I think.
But then with everything, you know, we're people can be very quick to go to the doctor, to go to the vet. Don't get me wrong, folks, I know that you have to take animals to the vet. I know we have to go to the doctors at times. I'm not doubting that. But it is very much a matter of, I think, some things you do for yourself without having to.
Yeah, but I think with mental health issues with animals, I call it mental health issues with animals. It's not as easy to treat it at the vets. You know, it's you know, even if you treat them with antidepressants, things like that, you're not actually treating the emotional problems. And what I'll just quickly say this before we go, is that the fluorescents, what they do is they allow the dog to, if they've got fear, they allow the dog to let go of fear. But what they do is they allow the dog to learn that in that specific situation, it's fine. So the fluorescences are allowing the dog to learn new behaviours, and they support the dog in learning new behaviours, and that's why they're so powerful, and that's why they work. And that's, you know, all of the dogs, and I work with really complicated cases, is that they allow the dog to learn that the world isn't as bad as they think it is, and with that learned confidence, then they can move forward. And it's not, you know, it's bit by bit, but it's at their own pace, and that's what's so powerful about it.
Absolutely, and it's what so many people need to. It really is. It really is. Have you, before we close, have you got any, whether there's a specific one other than Rescue Remedy that you love for a particular reason, even if it's only just it's nice and calming and relaxing,
Yeah.
or it's a fun one, or sort of something, just if you like a particular favourite of
I do. I have so Mimulus batch, that's for known fears. So you could be fearful of the vet, the postman, another dog, walking down the streets. Then you've got, I like to combine these sometimes. Aspen is unknown fears, so it's kind of a fear that you don't really know what's going on. So as an owner, you know, your dog's behaving in a way you're not really sure. So I like to combine those together. But I don't, because unless we're animal communicators, we're not really going to know what's going on. So I like those two. And the other one too are, I love cherry plum, because that's kind of like when you lose control, and it could be like losing control in dog running off. It could be losing the horse bolted down the stable, losing control, that any sort of losing control of your mind, where you get self-mutilation, where they're a dog or a horse, they obsessed. So it's quite good with fluorescence, because you use that losing control and you can expand it to anything that's out of control. And the last one is honeysuckle, where you can use for separation anxiety, because that's the one where you're always thinking about the past, and that could be, you know, ideally it's past something that's very happy, but it could be something that's very and abuse or something like that. So a lot of people say Star of Bethlehem, but I don't use that. You know, these are the ones that I've used, and they work, and they're brilliant, especially with rescue animals, and are powerful, really.
And you hear a lot of people, you hear a lot of stories about dogs having separation anxiety.
Ooh.
That, you know, a lot of the programs that they show about rescue animals, and you can't leave the dog, it's got separation anxiety. So this could be a really good one.
Loads of dogs with separation anxiety, and as I said before, it's about them learning that it is okay for their owner to leave, but equally you have to do it in a way. So the Essence support a program, so that if you do it in a gradual way for the owner, so the Essence is supporting that, so, you know, and that, you know, dogs with car sickness, it's kind of, you know, you could give them the Essence, but you're not going to just stick the dog in the car and then send them off. You need to do it in a way that the Essences are supporting that change, so then they feel it's okay. So it's all great, you know, it's very gradual, but it works definitely.
Brilliant, brilliant. Folks, you've all been very quiet, so I hope that that you feel you've learned from this evening. Caroline, thank you so much. Next week, we're going to be doing a program, Life and Adventure for Your Spirit.
Oh, sounds good.
Life, are you living and experiencing it, or just existing? I'm going to be sharing from Spirit's perspective. So I hope you will join next week. That's Wednesday next week, same time. In the meantime, folks, a very big thank you to you, Caroline, for being with us here this evening. Folks, I hope you will check out, as we said, we know it's not quite there yet, but it's coming. Check out Caroline's book, check out the page, bookmark it, and do. Caroline, thank you so much for joining us. Folks, have a wonderful rest of week. We hope we'll see you next week. Love, peace and light to you all. Namaste.